Welcome, everyone. I'm Lindsay Von Tish, a security consultant here at Bishop Fox, where I do pen testing, mainly focusing on application security and IoT devices. And I'm really excited to introduce to you today just an extraordinary group of some of the folks I work with in honor of International Women's Month. We're so excited to be here with everybody today to chat about our experiences working in the cybersecurity community and industry. We'll talk a little bit about women leaders that we admire in cybersecurity and why, common challenges that women, common challenges that women and other underrepresented folks in cybersecurity face, and our experiences overcoming them, and how we've built our career paths in offensive security. Most importantly, though, we want to hear from you and answer your questions. Before we get started, I'd like everybody here to introduce themselves. So please take it away.
Hello, my name is Britt Howell. I am a senior engagement manager at Bishop Fox. I've been here for about 4.5 years, and I've been in cybersecurity about the same amount of time.
Hey there, my name's Jessica. I'm a security consultant at Bishop Fox. I've been here about 3 years, and I mainly focus on pen testing applications and cloud as well.
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm also a security consultant, and I focus on web application and cloud security and penetration tests as well. So, thank you.
And with that, let's get started. So every person's path into cybersecurity is completely unique. What inspired you to pursue this career path, and how did you navigate to where you are today at Bishop Fox and in some of your local communities?
So I started my project management career at a university. I was doing multimedia production, application software development, custom course content. And so I got to manage a pretty large variety of tech-related projects. And so I moved from there to a small firm doing website design and then moved to Bishop Fox as a project manager.
Yeah, my road to cyber was a little bit longer, but I started out in the military, in the Air Force, doing something completely different. And I used my education benefits to then go into traditional schooling. And there I just honed in on my interest in business and technology and just learned about cybersecurity while I was doing that. And so I joined some local groups, hacker groups in the Tampa Bay area, and learned I could do this for a living, which was really cool. And just noticed a lot of breaches on the news, and I was ready to help people and keep people safe from all that. So that's what inspired me.
And then my journey was also kind of convoluted. I started out working at a small community newspaper in South Carolina where I was living at the time, and I ended up being the de facto IT person just because I was the only one that really understood computers there, which led to me writing a technology column, kind of like Dear Abby, but for iPhones, like writing about the latest social security scams, that kind of thing. And so it was through that I kind of got dipped into cybersecurity scams that were going around, problems that people were facing. And then I had a friend who was a pen tester who actually kind of told me more about the actual field, the opportunities and things therein. I started working in the reporting department of an auditing firm that did kind of pen tests and SOC audits and that kind of thing. And so that allowed me to learn a little bit more. And then with some great recommendations from the same friend, I was able to join the SANS Immersion Academy, get some career launching certifications, and then I've been here at Bishop Fox basically since then. I managed to hear a talk by Kelly Albrink, who's also a SANS grad, who's a director here now, and in hearing more about the company and the opportunities there, I was like, yes, that seems like the place for me. So here we are.
That's awesome. Those are such cool pathways. Kind of like Jessica mentioned, a lot of my career story is thanks to some of the local cybersecurity communities. I got my degree in computer science And during that time had done a CPF and realized I loved breaking things way more than I liked making them. Um, and it was when I moved to Dallas that I joined the Dallas Hackers Association and got to learn from very cool people giving fire talks. And then I started a master's degree in cybersecurity, actually around the same time I joined Bishop Fox. Um, so what do you think are some of the key traits that define inspirational leaders, particularly women in cybersecurity? Do these and how do these traits contribute to a more diverse and inclusive industry?
I think we all have a little bit of nerdiness in common, which is always great for company mixers. I think the women, especially at this company, are very much go-getters. They know what they want, like all of you said. Even if we have kind of fallen into the industry, we all really love it and go after our goals within our own careers. And I think that it's important to, as the new famous quote goes, women should be in the room whenever decisions are being made. So that is where the diversity part comes in.
Yeah, for sure. I like that, Brittany. I think another key trait would be the drive to continue learning. In cybersecurity, no matter what role you're in, whether it's pen testing, if you're on the defense side, if you're on the support side, it's just always important to know the trends and be comfortable with the fact that you might not know everything and just know who to reach out to understand that more. And another one is just pushing through those situations where you are the only person that might be a woman or a minority in the room. I think imposter syndrome is just something that happens in general in cybersecurity, and it can happen a lot more if you're, a minority in the situation. So I think pushing through that and being comfortable with not knowing something is really important.
For sure. I think some traits that have been really helpful for me just to learn from other women that I work with or that I see kind of in the field is just when they're willing to share knowledge. I think that having a lot of really intense technical knowledge, being able to execute like really intricate attacks and things is great. And I think that being willing to share that knowledge and kind of help lead others through mentorship or even just, writing a blog post about something cool that you've done is just a really valuable trait. It helps, the industry and the field keep growing, expanding, makes all of us better. So I really look for that and admire that when I'm trying to determine kind of who to pay attention to.
Those are all really good points. I definitely agree that there's a sort of resiliency that's really helpful, or being uncomfortable with being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Rather, like you said, there's imposter syndrome. I think is something that affects everybody, but it certainly affects folks who are underrepresented in this industry, um, and you you have to be willing to put yourself out there and say you don't know things even when that feels even more threatening. um I also loved what y'all said about sharing knowledge and sharing information. I think one of the really important things I see in some of the leaders is the folks who build a community, try to uplift others, and basically they've seen success and now they're going to bring everybody else with them. And I think that's really important. Um, and of the skills and approaches we've discussed, are there any that you've found particularly valuable to adopt into your career?
I think something that I learned from other project managers and bosses is tact is not always an innate quality in people, and especially from the project manager perspective, trying to convince the client like everything we are doing and telling you to do and asking for is for your own good. This is for the betterment of your project and the betterment of your application. So learning how to phrase things so that the client trusts you and is willing to work with you is really important.
I would agree. And I think, again, just pushing through that imposter syndrome, learning more and just being willing to not understand something but try to understand it eventually builds confidence. That's something I work on every day. And just being in that room as the technical lead and just being confident in what you're saying and displaying that is really important, especially when you're talking to clients about their application and being tactful.
Absolutely. And I think that what I see is really kind of a combination of both of your answers, because really I've really benefited from just seeing how these, brilliant technical people, especially women, like conduct themselves and relay information. And it's really given me some ideas for personal improvement, whether it is, like Britt said, just having that tact, being able to like not tell people when they're being an idiot. That's very important. And then also, like Jessica said, like having the confidence to be able to say, hey, this is, what's going on, being able to kind of own what you're saying. I think that's been really valuable to me.
Yeah, being able to own what you're saying and know you know what you're talking about and how to find that information out is always really important. And so much of what y'all have mentioned, I should be writing down for my own career, if I'm being honest. um, so, so in your time in this industry, have you faced any obstacles related to being a woman, or any other obstacles that you feel like are worth mentioning? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Luckily, in my career at Bishop Fox, I have not experienced as much discrimination as you might think, being a minority in the industry. The company that we work with, obviously, all our coworkers are fantastic. So I've been really fortunate there. I definitely have experienced, I think, a form of aggression. It comes across as, especially during requirements gathering, and especially older men have a tendency to want to tell you how to run a project when that might not align with your company's processes. It might not be what's best for the project. It might not achieve their end goal. I think the best example I can give is tutorial videos. I did a lot of those at the university, and everyone always wanted a 45-minute to an hour long tutorial video when the attention span of the average student is 3 to 5 minutes. Now it's probably closer to 90, 180 seconds, really not that long. And so it's just not trying to convey that it's not that engaging when you're sitting there for an hour, and trying to convince them to break things up, chunk out the scripts and everything. And again, just trying to convey that I know what is best for your project, and I know what's going to help you achieve your goal is really important. Kill them with kindness.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just about knowing who to ask questions if I don't understand something, and just thorough communication with clients. Luckily, at Bishop Fox, I haven't dealt with overt sexism in general. I do notice, like when I'm on client meetings, sometimes I feel like I need to over explain my technical background and that I know what I'm talking about, but that's, I think that's a social norm situation and cultural situation as opposed to overt sexism that I've experienced personally. But really just building that confidence, gaining the experience, working on various projects, and just learning as much as you can, it builds that knowledge that you need to discuss those technologies and things with clients, for sure.
Definitely. I definitely have had kind of a similar experience to Britt and Jessica, where I haven't had a whole lot of overt sexism, which is a great thing. I've heard horror stories from peers who have had much less great experiences either with colleagues or superiors and things like that. So I feel really fortunate to be where I am. I know that one of the obstacles, though, just by nature of being in tech, has been getting really comfortable with being the only woman in the room, sometimes being the only woman on a service team, sometimes being kind of the sometimes the person who has the most technical experience with a given project or technology, and then having to kind of go above what might possibly be, even if it's not deliberate sexism, just asking a lot of questions that are more targeted towards, like, are you sure you know what you're doing, as opposed to what the project is actually going to contain. And kind of like Jessica said, really the only solution for that has just been making sure that I communicate really well, that I'm very clear about, what I need from them or why I'm doing a certain thing, trying to just over communicate kind of what my needs are, just to try and bridge that gap. I think it especially in cases where it may not be deliberate sexism or discrimination, it may just go a long way towards kind of reassuring them that, oh yes, I do actually know what I'm talking about, or I am actually capable to do this thing, because ultimately my goal is to just reassure them, you're in good hands. I promise you, I'm going to do my best here. So just trying to provide them with that reassurance any way I can. Kind of helps me be comfortable too, because then I know that they're not going to be, when we finally get to the readout, they're not going to be questioning everything that we were able to put together during an assessment.
Those are all really good points. That's something I think about a lot, is it's absolutely terrifying being the only woman in the room sometimes, because there's this pressure. It's like, if I mess up, are is that going to be just like, oh, I made a mistake, or is the person I've messed up in front of going to take that as a reflection on my entire gender? Because while everybody here is incredibly smart and talented, we all do make mistakes. Um, and so, yeah, being confident in what you know, um, and being confident and working to deal with any issues that may arise in any issues that may arise in like a professional and good manner is uh and like preemptively, I think, are really important. I also think it's really important when you are the only person like yourself in a room, to make sure you have a community of folks like all the awesome people here who have been through what you've been through, who can or been in the same situations you've been in, rather, and can understand, and give good advice. And one of the things that I think a lot of us face are, of course, stereotypes. What are some of the stereotypes that you've encountered in your career? And how have you dealt with that?
I love this one. As a project manager, the stereotype, I think, is type A, very bossy, maybe no fun to work with. I'm always harping on requirements, but that's the point, right? Like I said, everything I am pushing the client towards is for the good of their project. I might know your processes better than you do because I've been working with you for a very long time. I've been working with some of my clients for 4 years, as long as I've been with the company. So when I have new service teams come on, I can point them to their own resources, their own company's resources on pen testing. And that is always really great. And yeah, like you said, so having backup as in the form of a person is fantastic. Having backup in the form of documentation is also really, really useful. Point them again to our agreements, whatever those might be, their own documentation. And we have so many helpful resources as far as pen test guides for clients. So anything where if you feel like you are ever being questioned, if you can back it up with something, you don't have to prove your worth. You know your worth. You just back it up with some emails.
Yeah, I like that. For me, some stereotypes, I guess the biggest one is the assumption that I'm not the technical person on the project. But, I address that kind of with that, again, going back to just learning what I don't know and what, being confident in what I already do know. And just having that network of people, either inside your company or outside your company, knowing where the resources are. I mean, we have the open internet too, so we can always, find information that way. So that's really cool. But, in another way, I think one maybe good stereotype about women in the workforce is that we are good communicators. And I think for me, I do a pretty good job of communicating what I need from clients, what I need from everyone on my team. If I need to ask questions, I'm usually pretty comfortable with that. Some people aren't. Just depends on your personality. But yeah, just not being afraid to ask for what you need and ask for more information from clients and all of that. I know that can be intimidating, but it's something I really do a lot of. So yeah.
For sure, for sure. I think, again, I'm gonna just cheat and combine what you guys have said. But basically, I've encountered kind of a stereotype of women being less technical. It may be, like Jessica said, it's something where they are less inclined to think that I'm the technical person on the team. But just making sure to communicate well. If I'm not clear on something, also, like you guys said, feeling free to make up whatever connections I need to, whether it's going back to the documentation to try to find answers to something or to try to find additional background information, or whether it is, reaching out to the network, contacting the technical lead on the project, just like, hey, they asked me a question. I think the answer is this, but they seem to be fighting me on stuff. Like, is this actually the answer? Getting a second opinion before you kind of make additional strides. If you're in a situation where you're already kind of facing some resistance, has been really helpful. Just kind of knowing when to call in your backup, whether it's, like Britt said, additional documentation, or if it's, someone on your team who can speak to what you're saying, or even just you send a Slack message and then they send another Slack message that's like, yes, I agree. Just having that additional backup is sometimes enough to kind of bridge those gaps and get it past those barriers.
I definitely agree with all of y'all with but I feel like I face the assumption a lot that either I'm not technical or that I would very much prefer to not be. And this isn't something I've really faced internally here at Bishop Fox, but certainly in college, I've had instances where I worked with a male partner on a project who said, "Oh, no, 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 don't worry, I can totally code everything." I was like, I wasn't worried, but actually now I am. I would very much like to do the work and make sure I know what I'm doing. And even as I've continued into my career, like I distinctly remember a conversation I had earlier where I was like, "Oh, I really want to get into pen testing," and the person said, "Oh, you mean social engineering?" Uh, and now don't get me wrong, social engineering is an incredible skill. It's not a skill that I have. You put me on a phone call and I shut down just like pretty much anyone else my age. um, I and I that's an incredible skill and should be counted as a technical skill, but sort of the assumption of like, no, you definitely want to do this, right, is something I've seen. And on the kind of while we're talking about technicality, and Britt, this might be something you've experienced the flip side of. I've definitely seen that sometimes in my interactions, people are like, "Oh, she's the technical one, so she's the only one we're going to talk to, the expert on everything." And I've had times where clients are asking me questions, and I'm like, "Oh, I need you I need you to ask or I need to ask the expert, the project engagement manager. Um, they're the absolute expert here, and yeah, it's kind of weird to see that the word technical to some people implies total expertise over everything.
Yeah, definitely. So that's something that we've kind of touched on in a few of the last few questions, but knowing when to use your resources, knowing where to find those resources, again, when they are other people is really important. And that happens all the time. People, as the project manager, people ping me because I'm the main point of contact. I'm the one scheduling meetings. I'm the one following up, again, nagging them for documentation, all that stuff. So a lot of times they will ping me with a technical question on a finding or on test approach when that is not my area of expertise at all. So kind of the opposite of what you all just said. It ain't me. Don't come. I'm not. Assumption correct. I am not a technical resource. So yeah. But again, that's a very easy. Just happy to find that out for you. Here's so and so who can give you that answer.
Kind of jump into a different topic. Offensive security, as we all know, is a field that's constantly evolving, and you constantly have to learn. What are some of the latest trends and innovations that you find the most exciting or promising, and how do you think that'll fuel new opportunities?
I think we're all going to have the same answer for this one. Definitely AI and LLMs. I am in the camp that iRobot and the Matrix are real, and we should not be using these for everything day to day. We should definitely start learning about them, learn how to hack them, and make sure that the technology is under control. But that I think is where the industry is headed for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. The three I can think of is AI, cloud, and IoT is a big one that we don't talk about a whole lot right now, but that's where I kind of started my cyber career, and it was really interesting. And there's just a lot of different technologies in IoT. Yeah, that's definitely something I look forward to seeing in the future, for sure.
For sure. I'm right there with Britt, thinking that AI is going to open a lot of doors. I think it's going to open a lot of doors as an attack surface, especially as it becomes more prevalent and gets added to everything, even when it doesn't make sense. Sorry,
I need my toaster to talk back to me.
Yeah, my smart toothbrush does not need all of the things. But no,
Yeah.
so I think it's going to open a lot of doors, both as an attack surface, but also giving us some more things to help with, to try and help with some of the more mundane or monotonous parts of testing, possibly things that you're doing over and over and over again. I know that it can be helpful just when you're trying to write a script on the fly and you don't want to have to manually write everything out. You definitely have to check its work, and you definitely have to retool things, but I think it's definitely going to be valuable and dangerous. So something we should keep our eyes on.
Oversight will be very helpful.
Yeah.
And I feel like oversight is something that'll definitely be needed. While I'm definitely not in the camp of AI is going to take our jobs any day now, we should all be terrified. But I definitely think it's a tool that we should learn to use, just like any other. But I think AI's biggest thing is going to be, its massive additions to the attack surfaces that are out there, and I think that's really, really exciting. And for anybody who's watching and kind of wants to know a little bit more about that, we actually did an interview with Chloe Mesadagi at DEF CON, where in part she talked about a AI bug bounty program that she's been working on, and some opportunities to get into trying to hack AI. So definitely go check that out. Um, for folks who are looking to advance their career in pen testing, red teaming, ethical hacking, what have you, are there any strategies or tips that you would recommend, or are there any specific skills or experiences that aspiring pen testers should have and focus on developing?
I think I'm going to let Jessica and Katie take this one for the most part. But from my perspective, I think communication skills are super important. Again, if you have questions about an application or authentication, like anything you need in regards to how to get into this thing, you need to be able to articulate those questions clearly to clients. And the project manager, who oftentimes is not a technical resource, might not be able to frame those questions for you. So communication with clients is super important. And then again, like we've talked about, networking with your peers. I say getting along with your coworkers, but using your coworkers as resources as well. Everybody's here to help. It's a great community. So just making those connections is important as well.
For sure. I would actually say that the soft skills are like almost as important as the technical skills, if not more in some cases. Communication being one that Brittany already talks about, but being agile is another. Since this field is constantly evolving, you just have to be ready to like learn something, and then it's just not even applicable anymore, and then you have to learn the next thing. It can be incredibly frustrating, but in that case, when you're trying to understand you're getting started in hacking or in any area in cyber. Learning the fundamentals is key. And I think once you do that, you can really start specializing in other areas. And my advice there, because I'm the type of person that gets interested in a lot of things and I can like overwhelm myself. So focusing on one thing at a time is something I need to practice personally, but I think it's a good way to do it. For instance, you can start with learning networking, and then you can move on to apps or AI, and then something else. But that's definitely something that I think is hard for a lot of us, because in tech there's just a lot of stuff you can learn, and you just might be interested in a lot of things. But I would say one thing at a time is really important.
For sure. Let's not burn out before we get started. So my tip is just figure out how you learn best. As we've talked about a few different times, the field is constantly evolving, constantly changing. There are constantly new exploits, new technologies, new things to learn. And if you figure out what kinds of training or information you respond to, it makes it a little easier when it comes time to try and figure out what your next thing is. So even if you're focusing on one thing at a time, just being able to figure out like, oh, I really respond well to video courses where someone's explaining and showing me things, or realizing like, oh, reading stuff really helps things commit to my brain. So just understanding how your brain works will really go a long way towards helping you kind of be as agile as you need to be as things continue to evolve. And then just some advice that I was given that bears repeating is just play to your strengths and interests. So there is a lot of information out there. There are an almost limitless number of like fields and subcategories of specific things. Find what interests you, what you're good at, what you can kind of adapt to quickly. There's always going to be more information out there, but if you start out playing to your strengths, you'll be in a much better position. Even just having more fun when you're trying to learn stuff. I know that there are a lot of different things that I've had to learn that have been like arduous struggles, and I definitely learn a lot more whenever I'm actually enjoying the material. So play to your strengths and interests.
And I'll add to that as well. So something Jessica mentioned, things come and go in terms of relevance. But I would say, and to Katie's point, any languages or methodologies that you want to learn for fun, definitely do it. I could always use someone who has Rust, blockchain, anything, those kind of more rare skill sets. We can always use someone with that kind of thing. So if those interest you, then definitely go for it.
That's all really good advice. I definitely agree with what y'all said about soft skills. I think my biggest piece of advice is learn to write and learn to talk to people. I mean, I definitely started my career, I'm like, okay, I want a job where I can work with computers and never interact with another human. And now I'm up here talking to people on the internet. That's
Wait a minute.
I've been bamboozled. But I think a lot of people are like, or yeah, don't think about trying to learn the soft skills. I think particularly when you're starting to look for a job, um, even if you don't have the technical skills, having those soft skills is going to show people that you're willing to learn. When I started my first role as a pen tester, I I didn't have the technical experience, and I wanted to be as immediately helpful as possible. So I did the like Google's free online technical writing course, and I think that really helped. Um, and some of these soft skills, like particularly writing, it's it's something you have to learn and get better at. It can be daunting, but it's a really good place to start. I also think for people looking to get into this industry, definitely looking for local tech meetups, hacker groups, user groups. I'm really fortunate with where I live right now. We've got Dallas Hackers Association, the Dallas DEF CON group, that I'm actually the adult in charge of, uh, the Linux user group, O Day All Day, and just all of these cool things. And while I'm obviously a huge fan of big cons like DEF CON, um, these local groups make it easier to see people regularly, get to know them, and for people to actually sit down and talk about things or work on really cool projects. This is the last question I have for everybody. Um, as we're finding, diversity and inclusion, having different people from different backgrounds, diversity of thought is really critical, I think, to the success of a lot of things, but certainly in cybersecurity. Um, how do you see innovation, creativity, and problem solving kind of contribute to improving diversity within the industry in the future?
Yeah, I think again, everyone has a unique perspective, everyone has a different background, and the more diverse backgrounds we can bring into a problem, the more creative the solution is going to be. So, again, women should be in the room whenever decisions are being made, but also so should minorities, anyone else, who might feel like they haven't always been able to voice an opinion are sometimes the people with the most creative solutions. So I think the more that we do things like this, do these discussions, and just kind of bring it up and make it known is really important. And I think it's had a positive impact already. We've all said, our experience so far has really not been that bad. So that is definitely makes me feel good, and makes me have a kind of positive outlook for the rest of my career.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Brittany. Having as much diversity as possible in a room is key to like coming up with the best solutions to a problem. I wholeheartedly believe that, and it's been proven in many studies. But I think just in the last like 5 years or so, I've just seen such a big shift in the amount of women and minorities I see in those rooms making big decisions. So I think that's really cool, and I think the more that we bring those people in to help with that, I mean, we're just going to see more and more of it because we're more likely to bring in those from diverse backgrounds if we're in charge, right? And we're diverse. So yeah, I think we're already solving the problem in a lot of cases, in a lot of industries, and a lot of businesses. So it gives me hope for sure.
Definitely. I think that one thing that I think is important as companies start to think about DE&I and like bringing in diverse hires and things like that, is also being willing to kind of make the commitments to whatever cultural supports are necessary just to keep candidates staying. It's one thing to like get diverse people in the room, but if they get pushed out because your company culture doesn't actually want them there, it can be really discouraging. I know that, again, just pointing to some friends in other places, they may work for a company or a university or whatever that has a really great optics surrounding, diversity, inclusion, things like that. But then if the policies, procedures, everything doesn't actually support those folks, then it kind of, you one step forward, one step back, and so I think like as we're trying to think about ways to bring more diverse folks in and kind of reap those benefits, it's also important to think about trying to give those folks support and make sure that we can actually keep them on board.
I like that you said that, because it's like a lot of companies will hire diverse candidates just to check a box, I think. And you really need to listen to those people that are actually in the room. And that's where leadership can be really valuable, when you're actually just listening and not just speaking over your people or letting the same person speak over and over again. Really listening to everyone in the room is imperative.
Yeah, I think that's just such an important point. Diversity and inclusion is more than just saying, okay, I'm going to hire, people of color, women, um, and that's going to fix all of the inclusion issues in the company. I think that's expected. You're hiring people to do specific work, and it's sort of an unfair expectation that they should also be kind of changing the company culture. It's one of those things that, yeah, you want to listen to those people. But I think we've all definitely experienced, or I don't want to speak for anybody else. I've certainly experienced cases where I came in, and it was like, oh, nobody in leadership has my perspective. Um, you know, isn't kind of seeing the same things, and it felt like, yeah, just more of a uphill battle. And that's something I'm always really impressed by here at Bishop Fox, actually, is the way that I see, representation at so many levels throughout the company. Um, and I think, yeah, having that is important to particularly innovation, because we want to make sure everything works for everyone. Um, does anybody else here have any final remarks? Anything popped up?
I always like to say, don't give up. Being a woman in tech can be difficult, especially during the education portion, but don't give up. Find your people. It'll be great.
Yeah, finding your people and finding community, I think, are two things that can go a long way, just so that way when you're feeling discouraged, you have someone there to actually say, like, no, I've experienced that too. You're not alone. You're not crazy. This isn't in your head. Because I think there's a lot of, I think it's like Jessica had mentioned, imposter syndrome at a couple of points. Like, it's really easy to get down on yourself and feel like you don't belong. But if you have, friends, mentors, people that can say, yes, you can, like, I've literally seen you do this, it's fine, you're just having a bad brain day. I think that can be really helpful as you're trying to make whatever strides you need to.
I definitely agree with all of that. I think there's, yeah, particularly when you love what you're doing, there's so much pressure to be really good and do it well. And I've certainly found myself stalled in cases where I didn't want to make a mistake, or kind of stalling myself because it's like, oh, I struggled to learn this. And it's really easy to go, well, therefore I can never do it and I just have to give up, because I think a lot of us, like, smart, nerdy people, it's really frustrating to struggle. And so my advice to everyone is stop worrying about good enough, and just do, particularly when you're learning. Go try, go try that exploit, try to work it out, and don't take it personally when it takes a long time. You can definitely do it. Anyways,
Yeah.
thank you so much to everybody for joining us today. To learn more about the women at Bishop Fox, definitely check out bishopfox.com, and we'll provide some links in the chat as well. And we'd love to know what everybody who's watched thinks about this session, so definitely let us know in the comments. And see y'all next time.